I quit the rat race 4 years ago. No fireworks, no viral post, no one from my old office ever called to ask how I did it. I used to think escaping would feel like winning, like crossing a finish line while a crowd cheered. Instead, it felt like leaving a party quietly through the back door and realizing days later that nobody even noticed you'd left. Here's the version of financial freedom nobody sells you. It's not loud. It's not a Lamborghini in a driveway. Most of the time, it looks exactly like your old life, except one invisible thing has changed underneath it. I still live in the same house. I still drive the same car. My neighbors still think I work a normal job, because most days I don't correct them. This is what actually happens when you escape the rat race, and why almost nobody around you will ever notice.
For years, I imagined the moment I hit enough would feel like an explosion. I pictured myself walking into my boss's office, laptop under one arm, some kind of speech prepared. I imagined my coworkers' faces. I imagined telling my parents and watching their jaws drop. None of that happened. What actually happened, I sat at my kitchen table on a random Tuesday, looked at a spreadsheet I'd been updating for 6 years, and realized my investments were now generating more in a month than my job paid me. No trumpet sound, no confetti, just a slightly cold cup of coffee and a number on a screen. I didn't quit that day. I didn't quit for another 8 months, actually, partly out of fear, partly because I genuinely wasn't sure the number was real until I watched it hold steady through a rough quarter in the market. When I finally did resign, my manager said, "We'll miss you. Good luck with the new job." I told her I didn't have a new job. She nodded politely, clearly assuming I meant I was taking time before finding one. I let her think that. It was easier than explaining. That was the first thing I learned. The rat race doesn't have an exit sign. There's no gate that swings open with a bell. You just stop showing up one day, and the machine keeps running exactly the same without you, like water closing over a stone. Here's the uncomfortable truth about escaping. Most people are too busy running their own race to watch you stop running yours. My old coworkers assumed I'd found a better paying job elsewhere. My extended family assumed I was between jobs, maybe struggling a little, definitely not doing better than before. One uncle actually asked at a family dinner if I needed a referral to his company. I said I was fine. He clearly didn't believe me. Here's what nobody warns you. The version of success everyone recognizes is a bigger house, a newer car, a fancier title on LinkedIn. Nobody has a script for recognizing this person quietly built enough money that they never have to work again and chose to keep living exactly the same. So when you actually pull it off, when you genuinely escape the thing everyone else is still grinding through, the world doesn't reward you with recognition. It just doesn't notice, because the finish line you crossed isn't one anyone else can see. I remember running into an old colleague at a grocery store about a year after I left. She asked, "Oh, are you still doing the same job?" I said, "No, actually, I don't work anymore." She laughed, genuinely laughed, thinking I was joking, and said, "Must be nice to dream," and pushed her cart toward the checkout line. I didn't correct her. There wasn't a version of that conversation in a grocery store over frozen vegetables where I could explain 12 years of quiet, boring, disciplined saving without sounding like I was bragging or lying. So I just smiled and let her walk away, thinking I still clocked in every Monday. Here's what surprised me the most, and it's the part almost no one talks about: the identity crisis that comes after. For 34 years, when someone asked, "What do you do?" I had an answer, a title, a story. The first few months after I quit, I genuinely didn't know what to say at parties. "I don't really work anymore" made people uncomfortable, or worse, made them assume I'd been laid off and was too proud to admit it. I started making up smaller, easier answers. "I consult. I'm between things." Half-truths that made the conversation move along faster. It took almost a year before I could say, plainly, "I don't need to work anymore," without feeling like I was either lying or showing off. Nobody prepares you for how much of your identity was quietly built on being useful to a company.
I spent years resenting the rat race, and it still took me by surprise how disorienting it felt the moment I was actually, finally free of it. There was also a strange kind of grief. Not for the job, I didn't miss the job, but for the structure, the forced socializing, the small, dumb things, like a coworker who always brought donuts on Fridays, or the inside jokes in a Slack channel I wasn't part of anymore. Escaping the rat race doesn't just remove the stress, it quietly removes an entire social ecosystem you didn't realize you depended on until it was gone. I had to rebuild that, slowly, on my own terms. New routines, new reasons to leave the house, new people, some of whom still have no idea what my actual financial situation is because I never brought it up. 4 years later, here's my actual day. I wake up without an alarm most mornings. I read for an hour. I take my kid to school myself now, something I almost never did when I was working 60-hour weeks. I work on a small project I actually care about, some days for 2 hours, some days not at all. Nobody watching from the outside would clock any of this as remarkable. I don't post about it. I don't have a newsletter about how I escaped. Most of my neighbors still think I have a regular job, just one with flexible hours, because I never bothered to explain otherwise. The strange part is, I've made peace with the invisibility. I used to think I needed someone to notice. I don't anymore. The whole point of escaping the rat race was never to win a race that other people were watching. It was to stop needing an audience for my life to feel worth something.
Here's what I wish someone had told me before I started. The reward for escaping the rat race isn't recognition, it's silence. It's a Tuesday afternoon with absolutely nothing urgent on it and nobody applauding you for having it. Most people chasing financial freedom are actually chasing the applause, the story they'll get to tell, the moment people finally see how well they did. If that's what you're chasing, I need to be honest with you. You might get the money and still feel like you failed, because almost nobody will ever clap. The people who actually make it out are the ones who realize somewhere along the way that the silence itself was the prize all along. So if you ever do escape, really escape, not just daydream about it, don't expect a parade. Don't expect your old coworkers to be impressed. Don't expect your family to suddenly understand what you built. Expect a quiet Tuesday. Expect a slightly cold cup of coffee. Expect nobody to notice. And expect, somewhere underneath all that silence, to finally feel like you can breathe. If this hit different, watch Your Life If You Start Building Wealth at 38 next. Subscribe to Alpha Ledger because we're just getting started.